Good day, welcome back. This is the next video in my series on edge cases, which is where I use the transition zone between a stronger side winning and a weaker side being able to draw to identify the winning techniques and drawing resources in those edge cases. Now, normally I've taken a endgame position, such as I've done a couple of rook endgames and queen and pawn endgames, because it's those that have a very sort of clear sort of drawing zones mainly for the defensive side. Now, interestingly, edge cases are very prominent in endgame studies, because the whole point of endgame studies is there is often a series of only moves, and if you don't know the only moves, then you'll not be able to defend the position. The position we're going to look at today is the the Reti Endgame. It's kind of ubiquitous, omnipresent, this endgame. I think every chess player has seen it. They see it very early on in their career, and it teaches you a lot of lessons about endgames, which is why it's considered so important. You learn about having to sort of basically counting in pawn endgames, learning diagonals are as quick as going straight, and the importance of dual objectives. There's a lot of material in it, and you can see from the diagram I have there. The other strange thing about it is just a totally amazing position. You know, how the hell does white draw from that position? But it is indeed a draw. So let's move on to the analysis. Now I'm going to sort of go through the solution. A lot of people have done that. I mean, as there are many videos on this study. If you're familiar with that, then I'd highly recommend go towards the end of the video where I run my simulation software on it, and you can some amazing sort of outcomes in terms of alternative positions to this, which look equally bonkers. Okay, so let's go to my analysis screen. Okay, first off, let's just quickly look through the website there, the Reti Endgame. Now, interestingly, just let me move there. You can see it was done in 1921. There's a picture of Reti, and there's the position which we're going to analyze. And what find interesting about it is lots of analysis about the solution and so on, and there's a variant here with 3 pawns rather than 1. It's also a draw, which is weird. And actually perhaps as look at the analysis, come back and look at this, but some of these positions in the real world actually really show the example. The top diagram there, Yates versus Marshall, you can see, you'd think king c2, you'd run across and stop the pawn, but no, you have to maintain the double threat, right? So you go king b2, you're threatening to play a3. If you've got king b2, a3, so white has to pick up the pawn, and you've saved a tempo. Now you're inside the square, and then you can go king c3 and run across. I mean, that perhaps deserves its own analysis. And then Lasker versus Tarish. We've already seen that game in my Endgame Blender series, where Tarish was winning as black, and he transitioned to this endgame, which he thought was winning, and it isn't. And the reason why it isn't is that there is that h4, king g4, king g6. Black has to take care of the pawn on h4 first before he can run across, and that gives white Lasker the chance to run across and achieve the draw. So it's got some parallels in terms of actual games. Next thing I was going to say before I move on to this analysis is that you can see there, I was wondering personally, when is the first time I saw this position? Now, the first book I ever read, Gerald Abraham's Teach Yourself Chess. It's from 1950, I believe. And actually, I didn't realize Abraham's quite a very strong player from the middle of the last century. Actually, the note boom variation is also has his name associated with it. Anyway, here is his book, page 81. I've had a scanned copy of it. I can't find my actual copy. And you can see there it is. There's the Reti Endgame, white to play, draws, solution overlay. We'll go through the solution. So this position will be in every book, Endgame or otherwise, because it really does teach you a lot. So what I'm going to move on to now, just let me close that PDF, and here we are. So this is the position. We're going to look at it in sort of a mathematical sense before we then go on to the solutions in the game. And I'm just using this as a bit of time to sort of practice using my tablet as well. So bear with me. Okay, so we can see that I've fired up the counting already. So black wins in 4 moves by pushing his pawn. So let's go P, let's put P, black is equal to 4. Okay, next thing we know is white wins in 2 moves by pushing his pawn on white equal to 2. Right? Now, of course, if white pushes his pawn, he's going to get gobbled. So that's not going to work, right? But Because it is white to move, you can see that white has 3 moves to do something, right? So n equals 3. Now, if black does not move his king, then 3 moves gets the white king to this square here. And from that square, if black moves his king now, well, white can protect the pawn. So basically that will be white has 3 moves, 3 plus 2 is 5, and he promotes at the same time as black. Okay, so let's say that we get 1 king move out of black, k equals to 1. Then now, because black has wasted 1 move on the king move, then white has 4 moves to play with. And if you have 4 moves to play with, then the white king now gets to this square, which once again supports the pawn, and you've got that extra move, so it's 4 plus 2 is 6, and black has 4 pawn moves plus 1 king move 5, so they both promote at the same time. Now the only other possibility we have is that if black moves his king twice, if k equals 2, now we move on to the other drawing strategy that with 2 extra moves, white can catch the black pawn, right? And that's the other possibility. So after white moves, let's just do this. After white makes his first move to there, he's 2 tempo behind the pawn. And if black then goes from, let's say, there, takes the pawn, then white has made his 2 tempo off. And you can see basically there's a maths equation in there where the balancing factor is the number of king moves which black makes. Okay, good, that's good. So sorry about that sort of scribbly attempt. I just thought that's sort of an interesting way of looking at it. So let me close the Windows capture and move across to the analysis screen now. Okay, here we go. So let's go through this. This is I've got a few versions we'll look at. But here's the first one. You can see that's coded up the counting, the pawn counting you have to do. So let's have a look at it. There's only one drawing move, King G7. Now the idea is that from that discussion we just had, you've got the double threat. The double threat is to take the black pawn, and the double threat is also to promote your own pawn. So you have to make sure you are doing both of those things at the same time, which is obviously the diagonal route. So that's the important of that, right? And you can see there are corresponding squares, right? Which I've tried to do it. So h4 by black, king has a corresponding square. So that's corresponding square number 2, right? You've got to keep going diagonally. So we're still 2 moves away from capturing the black pawn, but we're also moving across to those key squares, which I pointed out earlier, here and there, which will be important in terms of supporting the pawn. So we're going to do the most challenging line, which leaves this as only moved for white, which is that black plays a king to b6, threatening to pick up the pawn. Now we have to continue the sort of diagonal route here. We've moved along to the e5 square. And because black has moved the king once, we're now only 1 tempo away from being able to capture that black pawn if we had the chance to run back down this diagonal. So if black captured the c pawn, then it'd be a draw. Therefore, black has to push his pawn to h3, and then if we now chase the h pawn, we're going to lose, right? This is where we now switch over to the alternative drawing method, which is queening our pawn. Now what you'll notice is that we're now protecting our pawn, and if black does nothing, we are 2 squares from queening, and black is 2 squares from a queening, so that will be a draw. This is basically what happens. Yeah. Go back a couple of moves, you'll see that, just do this out of interest, if you look at this, that the point is, if black could have moved to this square, then it'd be a moot point because he would have been able to block everything, right? But of course, our pawn covers that square, so that's the idea. Okay, so that is the basic solution. That's the longest solution with only moves for white, 5 or 6 move long line. Not that hard to calculate, but it's all about combining threats. We can quickly go to the other versions I have. The continuation I just showed. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. First 4 moves by white are by the king, and black pushes his pawn, moves his king, pushes his pawn again. And in fact, you can see in this line, I've got the extra line there where the black king then moves to a b7, but matched by the white king moving to d7, and the pawn gets pushed through. And Look at another line here. This is the alternative line where, to start off with, black just pushes his pawn, and in this case this is where white moves quickly to e7 square and is able to force his pawn through in time. I think we have one more variation, and this is the other line where if black just picks up the white pawn, then that gives us the true tempo we needed to catch up and pick up the black pawn. So that's the main lines. Okay, so I might have covered that in a little bit too much detail, but I thought it's important to understand how amazing Reti's original study was. Now, what I'm going to do now is move on to my endgame simulator, just to have a look at what else is hidden in this position, and it's quite amazing as we look at it, right? So let me just move that to where we can see it. If you remember the premise here, I move one piece around, and then it tells you the outcome of the game given the different positioning of the other piece there. So in this position, I put the black pawn on h5, and it's telling you where the white king, that's a circled piece, would be for black to move and white to win. And you see white wins if his king is in those green squares, and it's obviously what he's able to do is able to promote his pawn before black can, and that's a win. And the position we were looking at earlier was the drawing zones. So let's just change the result over to draw, and it should be white to move. And let's have a look at that. Now this is very amazing. Look at some of those squares which are still a draw. Now what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the a4 square. Now if you think of Reti set it up with the h8 king position, the king position of a4 is pretty damn amazing as well, because it looks like pawn's going to get captured or the black pawn's going to promote. Exactly the same dilemma, but in this case slightly different but similar idea of being able to draw from that position. And just speaking out loud here, you know, the strange thing about that position is that this is what I'm getting at. If you look at this position, it's kind of weird, right? Because that's all white to draw and that's white to win. So you can see that actually the original position, there's only those 4 squares in the bottom corner where black wins. The point is it's basically a winning white position, because in a lot of positions white can promote his pawn earlier than black, and in a lot of other positions white simply draws. So actually this is advantage to white, this position, because of the advanced pawn on c6, and the black king's in a pretty bad position on the side of the board. So I thought that's quite curious. So what I'm going to have to do here is I will do the calculation and have a look at how white draws. Now I think the interesting one here is going to be what happens on here, the a4 square, and you can see what happens, that white moves to the b4 square, and then he moves to the c5 square, then he moves to the d6 square, and you can see it's the same thing. That's 3 moves. He can then support his pawn, and we have that whole analysis I did. 3 plus 2 is 5, so that's he promotes at the same time. Now if black obstructs by going to the b6 square, white will continue moving across, and we'll just bring up. Okay, so here we are. Let's look at that line, king to b4. Now if black allows us to move up to here, then we've supported our pawn in 3 moves, and it's going to be exactly the same line as we had before. So let's say black does not allow that and blocks us with a king to b6. So we continue across. Once again, it's only one drawing line. Now if takes the pawn, then we'll be able to move inside the square and capture black's pawn, right? So but what else is black going to do? So let's say black pushes the pawn. That might be a more challenging line. And then now the thing is king d5. This is still a very interesting sort of sense of 2 objectives at once, because once again we're going to be inside the square if we give him one more move and pushes the pawn. But if he pushes the pawn, then we move to the d6 square, and we've got the same situation we had in the last line. But instead, if black blocks by moving to the c7 square, which is an alternative we didn't have last time, then we get back into the square. So that is why this original starting position here, although it looks completely bonkers, is equally a draw for white to move. Okay, so let's just switch back to the simulation window. Now, I hope that gives you a bit of more insight into this amazing position by Reti, right? With the king on h8, obviously it's amazing. How the hell does a white draw? But actually, you could put the white king on a3, and you think the same thing. How on earth is that a draw? And the idea is that, this is the same kind of idea, king to b4, c5, or d5, or c4 and d5, and you get in the square or you promote your pawn. And as I said, the real lesson from this position is given the advanced white pawn position and the bad black king position, this setup is more likely to be a win for white or a draw than it is to be a win for black. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that analysis of one of the real classic endgame studies by Reti, and thank you very much for watching.